Hi, I'm Anna Runkle, also known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy. Now, everybody knows that crappy experiences in our childhood can end up causing a whole slew of symptoms in our adult life. Stuff like depression, anxiety, relationship problems, health problems, difficulties with learning and paying attention and memory. One name for these symptoms is childhood PTSD. And if you think you have it, you've probably tried all kinds of treatments, from therapy and books and counseling and support groups and even medication. But if you're like most people I talk to, these normal people solutions are only kind of effective. They work for a while, so long as you're going to the class or until the insurance runs out. But after that, you're kind of on your own, worried, scared. You're going to slip back into all the symptoms of PTSD. That's what used to happen to me. I was trying to get my life together, and I was willing to follow all that good, smart advice from the people in my life, but it wasn't helping me. I would go to therapy 3 times a week, and when I came out, I would feel worse than when the hour started. I was worried about how I was going to get even the 2 or 3 days to the next appointment. But now I know that those solutions have this one big piece missing for people with childhood PTSD. There are things that you can do right now that totally work, but you have to understand what the real underlying problem is. Until recently, the effects on us as adults were thought to be almost entirely psychological. They thought we had developed negative self-esteem, negative beliefs about ourselves, maybe thought that we deserved to be in bad relationships, that kind of thing. Now, this may be partially true in some people, but it's not the whole story, not at all. So sure, childhood trauma can cause psychological problems, but the really important thing for us is that it can cause brain changes. So the effects are not just psychological, but neurological. And neurological problems can manifest in every part of our lives. It can result in physical health problems like diabetes and heart disease, but it can also manifest as emotional problems like depression or uncontrollable anger. Or it can manifest in behaviors that in theory we can control. Stuff like drug and alcohol abuse, risky sex, getting into abusive relationships, or the opposite, avoiding everyone. So these things start as neurological changes and then become psychological issues that then become self-destructive behaviors. So you can talk to a therapist about the behaviors or about the psychological issues, but if your brain is just sending compromised signals to other parts of your brain or to your organs, you have a problem that's really hard to talk your way out of. And that's not really how we were trained to think about it, right? You're supposed to talk about your problems, but when you have PTSD, talking about it can sometimes make it worse than if you weren't to talk about it. So if you're relating to this so far, then you're probably all too familiar with that feeling that you're kind of going down this path in life and you're getting really freaked out and you don't know how you got there and you don't know how you can dig your way out. So here's the missing piece. The underlying problem in childhood PTSD is dysregulation. First, we get dysregulated in the brain. Now, you probably know the feeling really well. Maybe your emotions go up through the roof and then they go really flat, and you say things you don't mean, or you get very spaced out, and you do things like getting lost driving through your own neighborhood, or you walk into a room and you don't know why you came in there, or you lose your train of thought in the middle of trying to speak a sentence, or you get clumsy and you trip and you drop things. These are the telltale signs that your normally well-regulated brain has gone dysregulated. It's a little bit out of whack. If they did an MRI on you, they might see whole sections that have gone dark. There's no activity there. Or they'd see areas that are unusually lit up and not communicating well with the other parts of the brain that they're supposed to communicate smoothly with. After a while, our brains will gradually come back to a regulated state, but when you're suffering with childhood PTSD, you're spending way too much time in that dysregulated state, and it's really limiting. Dysregulated people can't think straight. They can't make good decisions. Their judgment is wrong. Research has shown that people who had a really rough childhood can sometimes have a lot of difficulty being aware when danger is at hand or a loss is about to happen, and they can't adjust their behavior accordingly. Do you ever feel like you just keep walking into the same problem over and over again and you didn't see it coming? It's really easy to spot in other people, but when you have childhood PTSD, it's sort of like you wake up and you go, how did I get here again? Now, psychological problems respond to talking and reason, but neurological problems have to be addressed a little differently. When I learned how to re-regulate my brain whenever I needed to, then I could start to rehabilitate every part of my life that had been damaged before. I started to feel the best parts of myself coming back online: my intelligence, my compassion, my ability to connect with people and to form lovely, nourishing, safe relationships. I could follow through on plans I made. I could be responsible. I could be healthy. I could be safe. I could be happy. If dysregulation is the underlying problem, then a purely psychological approach is only going to be able to get us a little temporary relief, which is not entirely a bad thing, but it's not going to get us a permanent change out of the suckiness of having PTSD. For lasting change, we need to get our brains working again, to re-regulate them. And with that done, then we can begin to re-regulate our emotions, taking them back from extremes of numbness and hyperintensity back to center. And from there, we can begin to re-regulate our decisions and our behaviors and take them back from the extremes that we're prone to with childhood PTSD of too much and too little. That's what the Crappy Childhood Fairy blog and these videos are all about. It's about doing things that work for treating childhood PTSD. A crappy childhood does not have to define you for the rest of your life. In the coming weeks, I'm going to be sharing real strategies that you can use to actually make changes and recover and get your life back.